Okay, so we need to talk about the fifth type of problem when it comes to solving log equations, which you'll notice is very similar to the second type, except because it involves natural logs and e's instead of numbers, there's a lot less calculator work to it. Okay, so looking at that first one, so if you're looking at the steps, it says you have to condense or expand so that there's only one natural log in the problem. Only have one, but it's not in the most basic form, which is your next step, because you need to get this by itself. So you would subtract the 2 from both sides. And then you have to get rid of the natural log. So to get rid of the natural log, you have to put in its base. If you remember, we talked about natural log was log base e, so its base is just e. So you'll put e into both sides as a base, and then these things become powers. So e and natural log, when they're squished up next to each other like that, they go away. So you're just left with this part. And then this is an irrational sort of crazy decimal. I do not want the irrational crazy decimal. Just leave it e to the 9th power, and that would be your answer. So let's see. I'm going to go across, I think, not down. So looking at that second one, you've got 6 plus the natural log of the quantity 3x plus 5 equals 18. So same thing. You only have one natural log, which is good. It's not by itself, which is bad. So you need to get it by itself. So you would subtract the 6. So then you've got the natural log of 3x plus 5 is 12. So now you put the e in as your base. So here this will go away, and you have 3x plus 5 equals e to the 12th, because you can't do anything with it. So now you have to solve for x, and this is similar to when we deal with log and natural log stuff, in that when you simplify, there's not a lot of actual simplifying that happens, because this isn't a number that you're going to get a hold of. So to solve for x, you're going to subtract the 5. And just leave them as 2 separate terms, and then divide everything by 3. And then you could technically leave them both over 3. I tend not to do that. Since I'm not actually simplifying, I just leave the whole side over 3. And that would be your answer. Third one. Okay, so here you have 2 natural logs on the side. When you have 2 logs, you have to condense them so that you only have 1. When it's subtraction, the way that you condense it is with division. And same thing, now that you only have 1 natural log, you'll put the e's in. This will cross out, and you'll put that part. E to the 7th just stays e to the 7th, and then you solve for x. So to solve for x, you would multiply by 4. So then 2x plus 1 is just 4, e to the 7th. And then you'll subtract 1 and divide by 2, keeping in mind that you won't actually do any actual simplifying. So then you leave it 4e to the 7th minus 1 all over 2. And that's kind of looking like the letter A, which it is not. All right. So that was condensing. The next one we're going to talk about, because we're going to cross, is one where you have to expand. So if you remember at all when I talked about it, I said most of the time, really, you are condensing. The only time that you want to expand is when you have a power up here. It's harder to deal with things to the 6th power. So the easiest thing to do would be to take the 6 and pull it down and expand it. And then you can just divide it away. And go from here. So then you would put the e's in, And 7x minus 1 would be e cubed. And just solve for x, so you'd add over the 1. You technically can also write this 1 plus e cubed. Like for the other ones, I could have put the constants in front. I tend not to do that. I tend to write them in the back for these. Doesn't actually make a difference. And then divide everything by 7. Make sure when you're dividing, and I make sure I write it that way, but just as a heads up, make sure that you put it, that you extend the line all the way, and that you don't just make it look like it's just over one part of the other part. You got to make sure that you realize it's under both of the parts. All right, last one. Okay, so there's a plus and you have multiple logs. You have to condense them. Remember, when there's a plus and you're condensing, it's a multiplication thing. So you have 5 times x plus 7. So what I would be tempted to do is just distribute it as you combine stuff. So if I do 5 times x plus 7, then I'm looking at 5x plus 35 equals 40. And now we're at the same point that we've been at all the other problems. We just got to put the e's in and solve, but don't actually simplify stuff. So you'll put in your e's. Subtract 35. And then divide everything by 5. 35 technically divides by 5. I wouldn't bother, and I would just leave the whole thing over 5 instead of trying to piecemeal simplify it, would be my suggestion. Okay, so that is type 5.